I don't understand. Do we have a frying pan in lieu of an actual bedpan, or you've put them all away? Well, that's no good, is it? Oh, hello and welcome to volume 29 of Ask a Brit. 29, it's like the Wall Street crash all over again. Except Lost in the Ponds economy is thriving, certainly in terms of the amount of questions we're getting. And of course, this is the format in which you find people ask me any question you like, so long as you use the hashtag Ask a Brit. That way I can find your question in the comments ahead of next week's episode. And next week is the big 30. I remember turning 30 and life was uphill from then on. Or was it downhill? It's uphill. I can never sort of think, ergonomically how that works. And the first question today comes from Mr. Jack McBain. And Jack McBain says, I don't like your show and I don't like you. The very idea that a rich, handsome British lord should find it necessary to seduce an innocent American country girl, a girl from the most country of country states, West Virginia, makes me sick. Did you impress her with hot and cold running water, television and a large clock, Big Ben? Then you come to America and force her to drive you all over the country while you just sit back and make smarmy comments into the camera. It's true. You're everything we try to break away from. When are you going to go back to your estates, your fox hunts, your tea with the Queen, and your drinking songs with Billy and Hank, William and Harry? How do you know their nickname? I didn't. Someday you're going to have to learn that you can't always get by on wealth and good looks. I would never go fox hunting. I can't even believe he even insinuated that. That is, Jack, you are wrong, my friend. I would never kill an animal except when I'm playing the game Duck Hunt. Okay, next question comes from Mariah Hansen. Mariah says, what is your favourite thing that Americans say differently to British people? Tunisia. The country, Tunisia. Next in the queue is Brooke Jonas, and Brooke asks, do you have any opinions on the Pittsburgh accent, Pittsburghese? You know what, I haven't studied it that much. I know there are sort of somewhat nuances to how a lot of the eastern United States speaks, but I would welcome some lessons on that, Brooke. And Brooke has a follow-up question. How come glacier has not made an appearance in your words that Brits and Americans say differently? And I had to think about this one because I say glacier much in the same way that Americans do, I think. But back home, some British people do in fact say glacier. Perhaps I'm the odd one out. I don't know. I feel like forever I've said glacier. It's not a word that often comes up in conversation, though it may, given, climate change and all that. But I also found out that some Americans drop the I and pronounce it glacier. Maybe that's Pittsburghese. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Curry Monster, you're up next. Did you find it confusing when you first did a grocery run and you had to pay the tax at checkout, as we don't do that in the UK? Yes, I did. This happened to me back in 2004, and I was in Portland, Maine, as opposed to Oregon, and I was purchasing a ukulele for the paltry sum of $15. It was actually quite cheap, that, for a ukulele. Also, I thought it was $15. I took it up to the register and it was $16.25. Didn't exactly set me back to impoverishment, but it was quite disorienting to get to the till and to see it go from the price you had in your head, and you had the exact change ready. So I had to pull out my debit card and pay for the additional $1 something with the debit card. I felt like a right prat, because I had no idea what was going on, and I think they laughed at me, but that could be because I was buying a ukulele. Stephen Nolte, do Americans get your innuendo, as it feels like a very British thing in your videos? Well, I should hope they do. I mean, at least the Americans that follow my videos certainly seem to have a sense of humour, because you're right, innuendo in my videos does come up. That was another attempt, and I'm sorry. It's Sunday. Goodness me. And I think it's fine, but I often wonder, if I had an American accent, if indeed I was an American and I was coming out with innuendo, would I get such a free pass? I think my country has a history with it. You've got Benny Hill and many comedians, really, that just sort of revert to both sort of sexual innuendo and toilet humour with a U, in this case, because it's British. And I think that it's sort of it's acknowledged that that's a weird eccentricity of the British people. I can't speak for all British people, though I do make strong efforts to do so. I think toilet humour is I still find the word poo funny after all these years. I can barely say it without cracking a smile and laughing my arse off. Tell me in the comments, maybe there are those of you that find it revolting and would rather I stop, but I'm not going to. It's just part of who I am. Next questions, plural, comes from Jamie Parton. Jamie asks, do you have any specific favourite American craft beers? And what is your favourite style? I don't know if I have any in particular, but I've definitely enjoyed some nice craft beers in Indiana. I'm not a connoisseur. I will tell you that now. I am a sir. So I've not been knighted. That is not true at all. But I'm not a connoisseur either of beer or indeed any alcohol. I'm not really prejudiced. I'll put anything in my mouth, alcoholic-wise. But I enjoyed some nice craft beers, I believe, in the state of Indiana. And Jamie also asks, have you tried Ghirardelli chocolate? It's actually very good American chocolate. That's a very, 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 very good point. There's a lot of verys, probably too many. But it is a very good point that, I think a lot of British people, myself included, at times, jump on Hershey's as if it is, the only American chocolate in the known universe. But Ghirardelli is nice, isn't it? I don't know why I've gone with such a high register. Maybe Ghirardelli does that to me whenever I think about it. And it also turns me cockney. I'm sorry, I've no idea what's going on. I've had too much water, which, makes a change from the other liquids that I put in my mouth. Again, alcohol. I'm talking strictly about alcohol and coffee. Ghirardelli is very nice, though. I definitely recommend anybody try that out. And Jamie also says, if you've seen them, do you like a bit of Fry and Laurie and Black Books? I've seen both, and yes, the answer is yes to both. Sorry about that. Just clearing my throat. I, of course, love Fry and Laurie. I think they've been quite an influence, actually, on my own sort of sense of comedy. And perhaps sense of delivery in many ways. And not just from a bit of Fry and Laurie, but their sketches were hilarious and continue to be. But from their appearances in Blackadder and House. Just realised Stephen Fry is not in House. I try to think of something that Stephen Fry's in that Hugh Laurie's not in. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He did the audio books there, and he also was in so many things. So I don't even know why I'm going down that road. But yeah, I love those two. Next question. Beth Hodges. Rick Steves prides himself on giving a less touristy view on travel by focusing and exploring the smaller towns and lesser known aspects of a country. I love that about Rick. I know he hasn't been able to cover the whole country, but does he give a good/proper representation of England in the shows/books he's done about that country? He does. I remember very specifically he did an episode on the Lake District, or as he likes to call it, the Lakes District. Puts an S at the end for no apparent reason, but then I found a lot of Americans do that. When I do my Rick Steves impression, I ought to put on the glasses because, well, he wears them. Makes it more discernibly obvious that that's who I'm doing. But he does do a good job of that, I think. I'm trying to recall some of the other episodes because I'm more interested in his episodes that take place on mainland Europe, just because I myself am quite an outsider to that particular situation, and I just like to see him sitting in a restaurant in Paris, just eating cheese and telling me why I should do that. Okay, Jack Stakowitz asks, as we get closer to the Christmas holidays, are there movies, films that are holiday traditions in the UK, like here in the US? So, for example, It's a Wonderful Life is quite the tradition, and more recently, Love Actually, British movie, has become something of a holiday tradition too. Anything similar in Britain? Well, I'll tell you something about Britain growing up there, at least in my family. It was less the case that we'd watch Christmas films, traditionally Christmas films, like the aforementioned It's a Wonderful Life, a film actually that wasn't huge news over in England for the most part. But we would watch films that were sort of blockbuster films like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars and Back to the Future at Christmas. I mean, and not just sort of actively go and find the DVDs or VHSs, who remembers them? Most of us, possibly, maybe, I don't know. But we'd, and The Sound of Music and just a number of other big selling films would just be on the television. They'd actually be on BBC One, BBC Two, BBC Three, BBC... I could go through all the BBCs. And you'd be bored and you'd switch off, so I won't do that. And that was it. That's how I remember it. Specifically on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, when you'd be sitting around your house in your underpants, if that. And I say that, I lived with my parents, so we all were fully clothed. This would be weird if not. Okay, Suzanne Tripp. Suzanne asks, what are your thoughts on Indian restaurants here? I'm a Brit living in Connecticut for 13 years, and we found a great one, but it took years. Well, I'm lucky then, because in Indiana where I lived, or at least Indianapolis, there was quite a handful of pretty decent Indian restaurants. Now, I will say, and I think I've said this in the past, Indian restaurants here are not the same as Indian restaurants in the UK, and I venture that neither are the same as Indian restaurants in India. But they are, in fact, both, at least the British and the American attempts at Indian are rather nice. I found some good ones in Indianapolis, and I'm certainly not hard up for Indian restaurants here in Chicago. You just go down the street to Devon, right? And they've got it's basically an Indian area of Chicago, and you can get some lovely food there. But yeah, I mean, I can't speak to Connecticut, because it's out of earshot. That was a joke about trying to speak to, never mind. But, I imagine that, some of the biggest cities in Connecticut, like your Hartfords, your Stamfords and all of that, maybe they'd have good ones. I don't know. But, it's only a short drive to New York City where you are, so you could always find some there, perhaps. And the final question today comes from Heather Baisley. Hello, Heather, and welcome to the channel. And Heather asks, I'm a huge Jane Austen fan, don't blame you, and notice that when describing a character, she mentions whether or not they are amiable. Is this a word still often used in England, or was that just part of that time period? So I was under the impression that amiable, or amiable, depending on your pronunciation, was in fact used in the United States. It's a word that is, I think, somewhat more archaic nowadays because of a very similar word, amicable, right, or affable. There's all these A words ending in able, that mean the same thing, just sort of friendly by nature and all of that. So I guess amiable got pushed to the back of the queue. I don't think you'd catch a lot of people saying it in the UK, but it definitely comes out if you want to be particularly wordy and pretentious, half of which was Jane Austen. I'll leave it up to you to decide which half. She was wordy. That's what I would never call Jane Austen pretentious. That'd be pretentious on my part, wouldn't it? That's it for this episode of Ask a Brit. Join me next week when we celebrate turning 30 years old, 30 weeks, not even that because we've skipped a couple of weeks, 30 volumes. It sounds less impressive when I say that. So, and please do follow me on Instagram so you can see stupid pictures of me. That's for people that don't care for my voice but just want to see my lovely, lovely face. And you can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook and go to my website, lostinthepond.com. Until next time, have a bloody good week. So don't kill anyone. That sounded violent. Bye.